The Tennessee Titans fired head coach Mike Vrabel after missing the playoffs for the second consecutive season after they finished the year with a 6-11 record. This move comes 1 year after they hired new GM Ran Carthon and a little over a year since they fired former GM John Robinson towards the end of the 2022 season. The Titans have been on a downward spiral since the end of the 2021 season, in which they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the divisional round of the playoffs with a score of 19-16. They finished the 2022 season with a 7-10 record, and they had the opportunity to play for the AFC title in Week 18 against the Jags, but as we know, they lost the game and Jacksonville would go on to beat the Chargers in the wild card round of the playoffs. Tennessee entered the 2023 offseason in an interesting situation, and with their first two picks in the 2023 draft, they would select offensive lineman Peter Skoronski and trade up to draft quarterback Will Levis. But outside of those two players, and now with this decision to fire Mike Vrabel, we ask the question, what the hell are the Tennessee Titans doing? Well, we're going to try and answer that in today's video. Now let's begin. We are starting today's video by addressing the elephant in the room and asking the simple question, why was Mike Vrabel fired? There are several layers to this, and the first and foremost is the Titans front office thought he was underachieving and thought they could do better than Vrabes and wanted to move on. I know that part is obvious, but I did at least want to get that part out of the way. But how many coaches would have taken this 2023 team to the playoffs based on the talent they have on their roster? To me, the answer is zero, and not only is that answer zero, but there's not many head coaches that I think are definitively better than Vrabel. When you look at the Titans roster, their offensive skill position players are Tyjae Spears, a 31-year-old who will be 32 by the time the 2024 season starts, in DeAndre Hopkins, tight end Chig Okonkwo, a 30-year-old Chris Moore who has never been good at the NFL level, and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Those were the top 5 receivers for the Tennessee Titans in 2023. This also doesn't factor in how good the Titans offensive line was in 2023 and how good they blocked for rookie Will Levis, who had absolutely all day to throw. So the lack of weapons were surely countered with a great offensive line, right? No. The Titans' offensive line was awful, really outside of Peter Skoronski, and the Titans' quarterbacks were sacked a combined 64 times during the 2023 season. That's nearly 4 times a game, which is obviously bad to begin with, but to give you an idea of how bad the Titans' offensive line was, Sam Howell was sacked 65 times in 2023, and we all heard about how many times he was sacked throughout the 2023 season, but Sam threw the ball nearly 50 more times than the Titans' quarterbacks combined did. Tennessee quarterbacks were sacked on 11.5% of their dropbacks in 2023, and I know this may be a crazy concept, but the lack of talent on this roster is not on Mike Vrabel. Yes, Mike has input on draft picks and free agent signings, and he works with the GM hand in hand, so I don't want to act like Mike is completely innocent here, but the 2023 Titans offense at times was truly anemic. They put up 400 yards or more just twice, which was in a Week 4 game against the Bengals, in a game they had 400 yards of offense on the dot, and in a game against the Dolphins in which they had 403 yards of offense in a shocking Monday night win. They had several disappointing games in 2023, like the Browns game in which they mustered just 94 yards of total offense, and in a game where they would have just 6 first downs. They would go just 2 of 12 on third down in that game, and putting up 3 points on the road generally is a losing recipe. We can talk about the lack of talent on the Titans roster pertaining to the 2023 season forever, but one thing that legitimately concerns me moving forward for this team is take a look across the rest of the division. The other quarterbacks in this division are all young guys that all look to have bright NFL futures. CJ Stroud had a phenomenal rookie year and led the Texans to an AFC South division title. Trevor Lawrence had a down year, yes, but he is still at minimum a solid starting quarterback. Anthony Richardson is a guy who I think has a very high ceiling and a guy who I 100% believe in based off of the success the Colts had this year with a backup quarterback and a rookie head coach. Also, I liked what Anthony showed in his limited time he played this past year. I don't think the AFC South is the class of the NFL by any means, but I don't think the AFC South is a pushover or a slouch the way they were viewed just 6 months ago. Because remember, the Texans were a joke and had back-to-back top 3 draft picks, the Colts hired Jeff Saturday and had a top 4 draft pick, and the Titans finished with a losing record, and the future did not look bright for them at all. The perception of this division has changed a lot over the 2023 NFL season, and that's due in large part to DeMeco Ryans' Texans and Shane Steichen's Colts. Obviously, the Jags had a down year in regards to what they were hoping to accomplish, but they're no slouch and they're not a team you can take lightly. I don't think the Jags were ever Super Bowl contenders in 2023, even when they were 8-3 through 11 games, but they're not a team that's going to be drafting in the top 5. From where the Titans currently are without a head coach and with the GM entering his second draft and now with a young quarterback entering his second year, I absolutely hate where the Titans are within this timeline because this has disaster written all over it. You can convince yourself Will Levis is a great quarterback due to the Falcons game in which Levis would go on to throw 4 touchdowns in his NFL debut. That alone is special in itself, but like we saw from Will during his final season at Kentucky, he has nothing to work with and the Titans have to hope that one of the head coaching candidates available, like what they saw from Will enough during the time he played in the 2023 season. Not only do you have to convince yourself Will is the guy moving forward, but you almost have to be okay with a bad season in year 1 as the coach of the Titans. We will mention this a lot this offseason with rebuilding teams, and I think the Titans are a perfect example of this, but what I want to emphasize with every rebuilding team and every team's future we discuss is not every offseason is going to be like the offseason the Houston Texans just had. You are not going to leave a draft with a franchise quarterback, a franchise pass rusher, and a receiver in Tank Dell who looks like he could be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. That is pie in the sky for any franchise, and that is not a realistic goal for any team entering the NFL draft. If it happens, great, I am happy for you, but that is far from the norm. And how this plays into why the Titans are in a bad situation is because they have the 7th overall pick. There is a chance when they are on the clock that both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers are gone, which will inevitably hurt the 2024 Titans receiving core. There is also a chance with both the Chargers and Giants drafting directly in front of them that the premier tackles in this class in Penn State's Olu Fashanu and Notre Dame's Joe Alt, those are not rankings by the way, but there's a chance both are gone too. I would personally argue that entering the 2024 season without a franchise tackle to protect not just Will Levis, but any quarterback for that matter, is more critical for the Titans roster than drafting Malik Nabers, who I absolutely love by the way. Both left tackles the Titans trotted out there in 2023 were horrible, as I was never a fan of winging it and placing all the eggs in the basket of Andre Dillard and hoping he could figure it out on the fly. Andre was a first-round pick for the Eagles back in 2019 who played just 58 total snaps during the 2022 season, and during the 2023 offseason, the Titans signed him to a low-risk, high-reward contract, hoping he could play like the prospect he was coming out of Washington State. They signed him to a 3-year, $29 million deal, with 13 of that being guaranteed, and I have no problem taking that risk and signing Dillard, hoping he works out, but I do have a problem with your backup solution being 6th-round rookie Jalen Duncan from Maryland. I wasn't the biggest fan of Duncan as a prospect, and this isn't me trying to take a victory lap over a 23-year-old rookie, but playing Jalen against teams in the AFC South and against guys like Josh Allen, Will Anderson, Samson Ebukam, Kwity Paye, and you get the point, was always going to be bad. Duncan allowed 36 pressures on just 207 pass blocking snaps, which is allowing a pressure at a rate of over 17%, which obviously isn't good, and this is something the Titans are going to address this offseason. They have to hope that the Giants do not take the remaining tackle, because I do think at this point in time that the Chargers are almost guaranteed to take a tackle to ensure they can protect Justin Herbert, and ultimately the guy they have a $250+ million investment in. The Titans also do not have a 3rd-round pick this year, as they used that pick to trade up to go get Will Levis last year, and that pick is in the hands of the Arizona Cardinals. So for a team that desperately needs help seemingly everywhere, 2 top 100 picks and a new head coach is not an ideal start. If you are Ben Johnson or Jim Harbaugh, who I do believe are the top 2 head coaching candidates this cycle, why would you want anything to do with Tennessee? Truly. If the options you have are the Chargers or the Falcons, I don't think there's a case you can make in any way that the Titans are a better situation for either of those guys than Los Angeles or Atlanta. So by firing Vrabel, I really think the Titans are at minimum a coach's 3rd choice during this cycle. You could even argue fourth now that Washington isn't owned by Dan Snyder, and given they have the number 2 overall pick and the head coach will be guaranteed to work with either Caleb Williams or Drake May, or at least have the opportunity to. This may be a hot take, but I do think the Titans could have shopped Vrabel around and gotten a high draft pick for him. Coaching trades are always unique, and you never know what will be offered for a head coach, but Sean Payton was traded for a first-round pick last year, granted a late first-round pick, but the point here is the Saints acquire draft capital for him. Mike Vrabel will almost certainly land on his feet and could very well go back and coach the Patriots next year, and the Patriots could have him be their head coach for free. Now, for anyone wondering, I did say high draft pick, and no, I do not think New England would have gave up the number 3 overall pick for Mike Vrabel, but the point is, Vrabes is a lot better than other head coaches, and the Titans threw him away for nothing. With the lack of talent on this roster and the lack of draft capital, at least compared to other teams, I truly think this is the second worst situation for a head coach to walk into, ahead of only the Carolina Panthers. I think you can convince yourself that any other situation, again aside from Carolina, is better than what the Tennessee Titans currently have, and that started by firing Mike Vrabel. We have piled on a lot for the Titans throughout this video, and I want to try and discuss solutions for this team and realistically what they can do moving forward. They have a lot of cap space, which is evident because they don't have a lot of talent on this roster. Yes, they have Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons, but it's not a star-filled roster by any means. So in free agency, we have to help out Will Levis and figure out whether or not he is the long-term answer. This is a player we will discuss potentially signing for other teams, Carolina, but T. Higgins would make a lot of sense for the Titans. Giving T the money he wants is completely reasonable for Tennessee, and it helps the passing game in a big way. Yes, I realize it would be a little ironic to pay T. Higgins top dollar and not pay A.J. Brown while whiffing on the Treylon Burks pick, but that's done and over with, and we need help at the receiver position. Giving T something in the ballpark of a 4-year deal worth $92 million, with about 45 of that being guaranteed, is a start. I wasn't surprised when the Andre Dillard situation didn't work out, because it was a dart throw. The reason it was a dart throw is because good offensive linemen do not hit free agency, at least not often. So to get Will and ultimately the run game a better tackle and a guy who can be there for the next several years, we are looking at jumping the Chargers and trading with Arizona to go up to 4 to go get Joe Alt. I know we mentioned Tennessee does not have a 3 and the Cardinals have their 3rd round pick, but if we can trade pick 7 and a combination of a pick swap, whether we give Arizona our 2nd round pick and get back our 3rd from last year, you get the point. Whatever it takes, we trade up to go get the tackle of the future. I know this is very offense-centric, but figuring out the offense in the AFC, and especially the AFC South with the quarterbacks that are now in this division, is absolutely critical for the future of the Titans. Another player I would like for Tennessee to get in free agency is a steady Eddie at receiver, and that's KJ Osborne, currently of the Vikings. The Titans have the 2nd most cap space behind only the Commanders, and they can outbid a lot of teams. If you start by bringing in T. Higgins, whose hometown is just a little over 2 hours from Nashville, and follow it up with KJ Osborne and have a trio of Higgins, Osborne, and Hopkins, I don't want to act like this team is destined for an AFC championship, but you will find out whether or not Will Levis is the guy, and your team will get better if you go get Joe Alt as well. That would solve the left side of your offensive line for the next several years. Admittedly, I don't like the Titans situation at the moment, and I was not a fan of firing Mike Vrabel at all, but I think there's one thing we can agree on. The Titans have to spend money this offseason. They have to figure out whether or not Will Levis is the guy, and it starts by bringing in receivers and doing what you can to fix the offensive line. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 35% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.